All right. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome to Wine Women and Words. I am Michelle, and with me, of course, is Diana.
Hello.
And this evening, we have Alexis Henderson with us. We're going to be talking about Academy for Liars and Academy for Liars. And we're so excited to have you here. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, for our listeners who may not yet be familiar with an Academy for Liars, can you give us an overview of what the story is about?
The story follows Lennon, a young woman whose life is completely falling apart when she's invited to enroll in a very mysterious university called Drayton College that is set in a magical pocket of Savannah, Georgia. And there she learns how to wield the power of persuasion, which basically allows her to bend other people to her will and maybe even like reality itself, and kind of like warp things. I think it's my trippiest book to date. Had a lot of fun writing it, but hurt my brain a little bit, to be honest.
Do you
Yeah, I
ever? Oh,
mean, yeah,
you
with
go.
Drake being what it is, it's almost like I don't know if any of you are Doctor Who fans, but it reminds me of the TARDIS in some ways, where it's just like it exists outside of time and space. It's his whole, it feels like it's its own entity.
Yeah. Yeah. That was definitely something I wanted to know. My like touchstone was like kind of like Inception vibes as well. Like I
Mm.
rewatch Inception almost like every single year. I love Christopher Nolan. And so also like the movie Paprika, which I don't know if that's like an anime film that's one of my favorites. And it also has this kind of trippy, at times dreamlike, nightmarish vibe. But I just wanted to play with kind of like tropes that we're familiar with and make them scary, like a magical school, but kind of make it so like horrifying and disorienting that it becomes almost like something else. So yeah.
Yeah, like you could kind of see some of those Hogwarts vibes to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's tr a trippier version of Hogwarts, as if Hogwarts was like was a being. Because it feels like it's hard to say. Like Drayton is its own character in and of itself.
Yeah, I became obsessed with this idea of like what about all of the kids who kind of got left behind or missed their chance to be prodigies and like, magical as children, like are they just forgotten? Like what happens to those kids who maybe haven't like realized their full potential or they had like really bright starts that kind of went awry. So I wanted to kind of write a story. I think like I pitched it maybe to my agent for like burnt out former gifted and talented children, like who become just like really burnout adults who are kind of like, just like depressed and like anxious and like yeah, I don't know. I love magic schools, but as an adult, I kind of wanted to write about like adults who like, they have like debt and bills to pay and they're worried about their futures and they have like real adult problems while also being in this like somewhat like whimsical but also dark magic school setting. It was like very much a book for me. I think I was very much like, I'm an adult now. I wish I could go to magic school. Like, what would that look like?
It's like the author's version of like having adult money to do, what you want. The author can create the world that we always kind of wanted to explore.
Yes,
Maybe.
exactly. Yeah, very much so. That's exactly it. Yeah.
I love that caveat of maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah,
Like
maybe.
maybe, but we want to have the emergency exit just in case because we know what we're about to put our characters through.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it.
So one thing that we were kind of talking about right before we hit record were Google searches. So while you were building this world of an Academy for Liars, what was the most interesting thing you had to Google while you were preparing Lennon's world?
I did a lot of Googling. I was really fascinated with the idea of tesseracts, which I think like, like four-dimensional object. They appear in like Avengers Endgame, and like that whole Avengers universe, but just basically the idea of like four dimensions, like what that would look like. And I think that, that was research. If you've read the book, then you would know that there's an elevator that kind of like moves through space and time. And so I was kind of obsessed with that idea. I don't think I came any closer to understanding the fourth dimension or four-dimensional objects for all of my research. But I was highly entertained while I was like watching videos and reading up. I read this book called, oh my gosh, I don't remember the author, but the book I'm pretty sure is called Flatland. It's kind of like a classic, and it's like this idea of, I
Ooh.
think it's a, is it a two-dimensional object that goes to a three-dimensional world or vice versa, but it's like a narrative way of kind of like exploring this idea of what different dimensions look like. And yeah, I don't know how much of that made into the book, but that was like a lot of research that I did before I started reading while I was working on it.
It's amazing how much research we can do on a topic and like maybe one sentence winds up in the
Right?
book.
Yeah, yeah, and I feel like, I kind of expected that I would want to read more magic school books, but I think I almost didn't need to because we've all grown up with those books and like I read them before. I felt like it was kind of in me, and I didn't
Hmm.
want to get too close to anyone else's idea of a magic school. So I think I almost put distance between myself and those stories when I was like, writing the first draft. I will say, like, after I finished the first draft, I was able to read and like my like not even humble brag. There's nothing humble about this brag, but I blurbed Babel. And that one was like kind of when I was able to read after I had kind of gotten a draft under my belt. So I felt like it wouldn't like influence me too much. That book is just like absolutely like fantastic. Um, and yeah, I loved it. I don't know if I would call it, it was just such a pleasurable read. I kind of forgot I was reading to blurb. It was just like I was totally swept away by it. But yeah, apart from that, I really kind of like didn't let myself read too many books that like directly related to magic schools at the time, just kind of like random bits of research, dipping my toes into some Savannah history. But again, I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, so I kind of knew a bit about that as well. Um, yeah.
It's interesting that you didn't want to like have them influence your books because I find sometimes if I'm writing about a certain um century or not necessarily a certain topic, but like a certain century, like World War II with the book that I've got coming out, I avoided World War II books for
Yeah.
at
Hmm.
least a year or two. And I remember somebody had recommended this Italian book about a kid in World War II, and I was like, I've got it, and I do have it, and eventually I will read it. But I didn't want it interfering with my writing of it. And I was trying to tell her this in Italian while I was doing that, so I don't know how it may have come out, but but that concept of not, and it's not so much about plagiarism as opposed to wanting to keep your imagination intact,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess, if that were a
Definitely.
word.
Yeah. And I think almost like when I read too much in a specific subgenre, I can become too aware of like the tropes or conventions. And
Hmm.
I think I need to know just enough to where I can try to do my own spin or subvert them. But I don't want to get to the point where I think of those things as like necessity. Like I love to question every part of the story. And like
Hmm.
when I was first writing this first draft, I didn't really know what the story was going to be. I was like, it might not even be a campus school novel. Like I kind of just let my brain go where it wanted to go. Um, and yeah, that's like a really fun part of the process. I used to be in the camp where I hated writing first drafts. I kind of still hate finishing first drafts, but man, the first 30,000 words where you're just like, I can do whatever. This book can be whatever I want it to be.
Hmm.
I love that. And so yeah, that was like I probably maybe the most fun part of writing an Academy Flowers when I didn't really even fully know like what it could be. Or yeah, yeah, that was great.
Yeah, the first 30,000 words, that's the fun part. That's like you're just putting it out
Yes.
there. You're like it doesn't matter if it's crap. It doesn't matter if I'm the worst writer out there. It's just out there. And then you have to like actually like wrap things up on the second half and you're like, "Oh shit, what am I supposed to do
Yeah.
now?" And in fact, when you were talking about that, I was actually reading this while I was doing edits for my World War II book. So I'll go to complete opposite genres when I'm writing my stuff, just to avoid it. And that's a great time, in my opinion, to like read another genre.
Yeah, I definitely did that. I was reading through what was I was actually listening to the Ice Planet Barbarian novels. I don't know if you know like the romance novels, sci-fi romance.
Yes.
I don't know why there was something so harmonious about writing that like Academy for Liars and switching to Ice Planet Barbarians at the end of the day. It kind of became like, like a ritual. So yeah, that was like I don't know. I'm sure I read other things at that time, but for some reason it's just like I'm like Babel and Ice Planet Barbarians were like the two that I think I really remember. Wow. Yeah.
Well, there's definitely um writing or no, reading as a writer and reading as a reader are two completely different acts of reading.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's really when you're like, I mean, I haven't written anything in ages, but when I was writing, um, and if you read in the genre you're writing, you become very aware of like everything. So, I mean,
Yeah.
the idea of not reading anything similar to what you're writing is, it's very real.
Yeah. Yeah. And also like sometimes I'm just like, oh, I don't want to even like think about anything related to the book after I'm done, writing that day. I want like something as far as from that as possible because it can almost start to feel like an extension of work. Like even if the book is really good, if I'm like spending all day thinking about magic schools and then I get my time off and I have to think about like read about magic schools, sometimes I'm just like, I might want like, a change of pace. But the fun stuff is like when I finish the book and then I can go back and read all the stuff that was like published in that subgenre that I love once I've had from it. That's great.
You have like a stack of books. So like, I'll come back for you.
Yeah, coming back, baby.
Just wait for another 30,000 words. And those
Right.
last 30 or 50 or however long, those are just the hardest ones.
The
Promise I
worst. Oh
haven't
my
forgot
God, I
about
love
you.
Right?
Promise.
it.
So, so one of the things that I want to talk about was Lennon, the character herself, because she was so complex, and I really liked her character. Like her world, like you said, her world is falling apart. She's a hot mess.
Mm.
Yeah,
And then you've got there was like some of them were considering her mentally ill to an extent too.
yeah.
And just I just want to talk about her for a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate you saying you liked her because I know many people don't, and that's absolutely okay. Like I have very mixed feelings about her, and she is a hot mess. Like I have a lot of compassion for her and attachment, but at the same time, I think something I say and think about often is how I'm not sure I would really want her like actively in my life. Like even when I was writing her on the page, it took its toll because her mental headspace her head was just an uncomfortable place to occupy to be in the mind of someone who in my opinion was kind of like sick in a way and like actively not really actively trying to get it better in some ways like that was difficult and I loved writing the first 30 page or 30,000 words of An Academy for Liars but when the book kind of starts where she's at rock bottom she's not working she's really struggling with her mental health she's kind of dependent on a partner who doesn't treat her well like there's almost this like I don't know if I want to call it learned helplessness because she is sick but she's not a particularly active character in the beginning and she's at like a very low point and it was kind of hard to start there I felt like I had to really not like she didn't have to earn my respect. I had a lot of compassion for her, but there was a kind of point where I was almost like really frustrated with her. I'm like, just do something, like step into your power. And I think a lot of the book was her um learning to do that, albeit in a very like messy way. And I had concerns about how likable she was or wasn't when I was writing, but ultimately I was like, this is who she is and what she is. And I think that I found it interesting to watch and see what she would do when I kind of removed this question of like, is she likable? Like, do I want to be her best friend? Like, maybe the answer is no, but she was fascinating to me. And I think that I realized like that was enough. And that was kind of new for me because typically when I'm writing a main character, like I just happen to I usually kind of like or would want to hang out with the characters I create. I do like Lennon, but Lennon like I don't know that I've actually written a main character that kind of like almost scared me in the way that Lennon did. Like there was just something a bit unpredictable about her and dangerous that obviously really attracted me to her character and made me want to write about her, but also I was not, I was sad to leave the story, but getting out of her headspace, I felt like I entered a better headspace when I stopped being residing within hers, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, just the way I had a thought on it, and then I just lost it. But just like her complication of it, and like I think some of the tension and horror came from those things others acting on her and being in that situation. Her
Mhm.
fiance, my gosh. I
Yeah.
I was like, oh hell no with him.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like at the time I was digesting a lot of like content about like toxic relationships and just like, we were all like do you remember that phase of the pandemic where everyone was like home and everyone was on TikTok and it was just like a feed. Maybe it was just my personal TikTok feed, but it's full of just like all like just like the worst stuff. Like even apart from the pandemic, like everyone was kind of falling apart. I remember taking in all of that and then like feeling this almost sense of like claustrophobia in regard to Lennon's life, like she's just home cooped up all the time, almost in the way that I was during the pandemic. And then, she's almost like she's not trapped at home. Like I'm very much a homebody and I love being home, but she's kind of trapped because of this relationship that she's in. Her
Mhm.
world has become like very, very small and kind of
writing through that while also kind of like being at home in the pandemic and like, not really feeling like you just couldn't like go out and make friends and do things that I would love to do and normally do. That was interesting for me. I feel like in some ways, like I related to her more because of the time that I wrote it. Like she was
Mhm.
kind of like in a pandemic of her own making in a way, like so cut off from everything and everyone, and you know.
And I feel like if correct me if I'm wrong, but if I remember correctly, going back to the book, the beginning, she was also like othered from his friend
Mhm.
group, where
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
of it felt like there was the race element to it, but then it
Hmm.
was also like this almost this hierarchy, like this quote unquote I'm an intellectual hierarchy,
Yeah.
and they're looking down on her.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it was like I think when I first started writing about Lennon, I could tell that she had this craving to be like recognized, and to
Mhm.
be kind of validated as being like smart or strong or different. Like she just wanted that, craved that kind of stamp of approval and validation. And so putting her in a competitive academic environment with a bunch of people who kind of stare down their noses at her really exacerbated that. And I think it created this desperation that was really interesting to me. And I felt like I could see and rationalize a lot of her decisions because of that kind of pressure cooker that she was in, this constant craving and hunger for more. Like I understood that ambition. That's something that I think I also like, even though I don't like to admit it, like relate to. Like I think as artists and like authors, like there is this like craving for like a certain kind of validation that is so real. And obviously I try to work against it, but with Lennon, the question kind of became like, what if she didn't? Like, what if she just
Mhm.
kind of like full throttle pursued this thing, this intangible thing that she thinks she needs in order to kind of accept herself and feel like she's made it and that she's safe and that she's worth something. And yeah, and then that's really just like this insatiable desire for power, really, is what I kind of decided. Like, I'm not sure when it would be enough for her. And that I
Mhm.
think that's probably what made her kind of scary to me in a way.
There was one thing that you said when you first started talking about Lennon about how you were kind of waiting for her to step into her power in
Mm,
the story, and that just made me think of a one scene very early in the book when she's going through the application process and she sits down with, and now my mind is completely blanking. I think it's Dante that she sits down with the pig or the elephant now,
yeah,
the pig.
yeah,
And I feel like that's kind of like her first moment of like literally learning that she has power that she can step into, and she has that moment of, like, A, what did I just do and how did I do that? But that's kind of like that realization for her that there is a path forward, there is power that she can step into, and then she has to start realizing, like, I have to do that for myself. Like, no
yeah,
one, that's like the start for, I mean, obviously it's a start for her, but like,
yeah.
I feel like that's kind of like a moment, a big moment for her.
Yeah, I feel like that was for me the moment also as a like when I was writing it where I was like, oh, there's like something here. Like when I wrote that scene, which is I think actually, I mean, when I was writing the first draft, I think it really did fall at the very end of that 30,000 words that I keep talking about. But for me, it's like when I know the story's gonna work, like if it flops at the end of that 30,000, then I have to start from scratch or like take a break from the book. And if it works, then I know I'm on something. And when I hit that scene, I was like, I think there's something here. Like I think she has the kind of grit to go the distance as a main character and like be that kind of like protagonist that has the drive to really make interesting things happen. You can probably tell I'm not like a very rigid outliner. So for me, when I'm creating the scenario or of a book or a concept, I'm really thinking a lot about like interesting things that could happen because of the nature of specific characters interacting with specific circumstances. And I do a lot of questioning, like, can this book or can this idea or can this character go the distance? And I knew at the scene with Dante, the first scene where she makes him pick up the pig and uses persuasion that like that she had enough like steel to carry the story.
That must be just such a relief for you when you hit that 30,000 words and you hit that moment or where you realize, like, okay, that I don't have to start from scratch. And I feel like that's almost when you're like, okay, now the book can get started because I know that this is what I wanted it to be.
Yeah, it really does feel like relief is the exact right word for it. Like I feel so happy. I'm just like, thank God. Because yeah, there's definitely times like it's happened recently where I write 30,000 words and I'm just like, I'm not feeling it and I know I need to start from scratch. And that's like frustrating. Especially when you feel like you've given it your all. And like with Academy for Liars, I really, really gave my all to that 40 or that first 30,000 words. And I was happy. I was really happy that it worked out.
Sorry, go ahead, Diana.
Okay. Well, it's good that you asked that question because I was gonna probably start to change the subject because, ADHD queen over here, I'm just like bouncing from everything.
Uh,
Because one of the things that I found really interesting is the persuasion element of it, that's Academy for Persuasion. And like there was this one line that I had to highlight. I see it's highlighted on my Kindle here. That I really liked. There was like there was always going to be somebody who will use the power they have to hurt those who don't deserve it. That's why it's important for that people like you become competent enough to stand between them and those they'd otherwise harm. And I feel like that so it relates to Lennon in a lot of ways, but I think the persuasion element to the book with the and with Drayton just it's an interesting concept.
yeah, that was one I feel like I did a lot of mental gymnastics to try to justify it or argue against it while I was kind of writing because I was the power of persuasion is basically just making people do things or manipulating them. Like it's a straw, like a really heightened ability to manipulate and control. And to me, I'm just thinking that's kind of like inherently very unethical. And so I was like thinking about the kinds of people that would proceed to learn something like that and then how they would justify it to themselves. And I think that like yeah, that quote, like it has a point, but also like, the flip side of me is like, is this just like the good guys with guns kind of argument? Like, is this just a thing that should not happen or period? Like, so yeah, I was really fascinated as I was writing the story with this idea that like all forms of magic are in some ways kind of like a breach of consent. Like a lot of magic, even things that seem like really fun, like illusion work is like quite literally like changing someone's mind or perception so they see something that isn't there. Like you're kind of taking this power. And sometimes, like, yeah, people want to play along and they want to enjoy that. But other times, like the casting of spells or magic and even like the kind of like wands and wizardry kind of stories that we're familiar with are really just like forcibly altering other people, whether or not they've asked for it. And I wanted to kind of interrogate that. Um, with persuasion and kind of ask those questions. I don't know if I actually answered any of them while I was writing, but it was really fun to explore the moral questions around magic and the use of magic.
And as
That's
writers, I don't
really,
think we're supposed to answer those questions. I think that's up to the reader to
Yeah.
answer those questions for themselves. That's one
Yeah,
of the
I
most
felt like I
beautiful
got
things about
nowhere. I
books.
was like, what about this? But then this, like I felt like the whole book was me like talking back and forth and arguing with like you like devil on my shoulder, angel on my shoulder, just going back and forth the whole time.
that's real. I don't know that I've really ever read another book that kind of explores the ethics of magic like that. And when you were, while reading it, even while I was like, wait, so persuasion, so that like even I had that moment of like, that seems kind of shady.
Yeah.
Like, is this good? Should we like that that there are people that can have this power of persuasion and or is this bad? Like, you have that moment of I don't like is everyone really good or is everyone really bad or are we just in this gray area? But it's really an interesting take on magic, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, I had a time with it for sure. Like it was definitely it definitely gave me like a lot to chew on while I was writing and just like thinking about our world too. I kept thinking like what would happen if this was like a real thing? And then I kind of came to the conclusion like I'm not sure our world would look super different if persuasion existed. Like in some ways like I'm off TikTok now. I can't my brain is too hooked. I just cannot be on there because I'm like I'll spend literally like 4 hours straight just scrolling through. But I'm like, the way these algorithms affect me, it makes me kind of feel like persuasion kind of does exist in our world. And like I am kind of being swayed. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm just sensitive to like ads and marketing and these things.
No,
But
it's a really good point. There's a documentary about it, and then the author Wayne Dye Randall, her husband, is actually in the tech world and does works on with social media stuff. And she was telling me that they don't allow her kids, like they have limited time for social media and that sort of thing, because she was like the algorithm thing is an actual, they've studied it, it's an actual thing where it'll put you either in an echo chamber or and so whatever you keep feeding into it, whatever you keep liking, it's just going to feed you more of it, and then you're going to be like sucked into it, and you're going to be persuaded to go stronger down. See what I did with the persuaded? You're going to go stronger down that road. And so
Yeah,
I think it's very much a thing, and I think if Drayton were a real thing today, I think there would be a whole subsection on utilizing technology and social media in that
100%.
way.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. Yeah. It's a scary thought. Like, yeah.
Well, so one question we always like to wrap up with is what our authors are reading now. So what are you reading?
So right now I'm actually reading, this is like odd for me, but I'm reading a book on hosting and like being a good host, nonfiction. What's it called? Wait, I'm gonna pull it up. Um, Let me see. Having People Over, is what it's called. Chelsea Fagan, I think is her last name.
Okay.
Really, really good. It just came out, and I was like the first in line at the library. I was very happy. I mean, basically, there's like recipes, and it talks about how to be a good host, which is something that I think at 30 I need to kind of learn how to do. So that's been great. I read also recently a book called Come Closer by Sarah Gran. It's like a demonic possession story. Terrifying. Like anybody who kind of vaguely liked the whole like Lennon fighting with her own mind, like those elements of An Academy for Liars, I think would love this book. It is like really good, terrifying, demonic, like possession horror. So yeah,
Oh,
those are the two. Yeah.
interesting. Oh,
Yeah.
adding that.
It's always
It's a
dangerous
great
when you ask
one.
these questions to authors because we're like, oh, we're gonna add this, we're gonna add this.
Hmm.
My TBR list just keeps growing and expanding, and my pile of books is just exploding. Okay, listen how cute this is. I was talking to my dad, and he's like, I've really got to focus on getting my TBR shelf down. I was like, shelf? Just one shelf? He was like, yeah, I've got two shelves, and and he's like, I haven't read them all yet. And I was like, oh dad, you haven't seen mine's exploded, and it's like come out of the shelves. I had three shelves dedicated to it, and now I've got like additional piles on top of that
God.
because I'm behind.
You're making me feel so seen right now.
I have a
I was like,
library
Dad,
cart
you've
of
got
to
to
be
step
read
it up.
books,
A library card. That's what I need to commit to. Like I'm gonna have to like wheel it over here by my desk so that when I'm writing, I can like see it in my periphery.
but
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
bad because now I've added a shelf over there of to
Oh,
be
I love
read.
that. Like the little
So
corner shelf. I need one of
so,
those.
so but that's my to be read library cart, and it just like taunts me.
Yeah. I have like
I've got
my
one
to
too.
be read is like right here. I don't even know what's on it. Actually, some of those books I blurb, so those are not supposed to be part of the to be read. The ones on top, but everything in the middle, like below them, I'm supposed to get around to reading. And yeah, I don't know. I find that like, do you guys find that when like you read like ebooks at the library, it like pushes you behind on a TBR? Because as soon
Yeah.
as I'm
Oh
like, oh,
yeah.
library loans ending, I prioritize all those books and I never get to my physical books.
Mhm. And I
Yeah.
don't know, my library, the I think I'm just gonna have to go into my library and get books from my library, like physical books, because the wait list for the ebooks has been
Hmm.
ridiculous.
Yes, same. It's like I think I had one that was like almost a 6 month wait recently, and I was like, what? Yeah,
Yeah, a bunch of them came in when I was on deadline, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not gonna be able to read any of these because
yeah.
I'm on deadline." So I had to it's like, okay, I'm going to release them so that the next person can enjoy
That's
them.
That's
I
good
just
karma, I feel.
I just had this conversation with a friend of mine a little while ago about um I always think about the person waiting for my audiobook when I return it a few days early. I'm
I
like,
love that.
that's like such a nice little surprise. Like I'm about to brighten someone's day by returning this book 9 days early because this person has been waiting, and I always like wonder who the next person is.
I love that. I
It's
love
like when
that.
somebody pays it forward for you at Starbucks.
Oh, that's
Exactly.
so great. I love that.
It's just like that.
Returning your ebooks or your audiobooks early is the pay it forward of the book world.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
I love that.
Well, everyone, An Academy for Liars, of course, is out in the world. So if you'd like to get your own copy, please be sure to check out our show notes and click on the link to our bookshop, bookshop.org. As always, bookshop.org supports our amazing writers. It does support the podcast, but most importantly, it supports all the wonderful indie bookstores out there. And Alexis, thanks so much for just nerding out with us tonight. We've had so much fun chatting with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I've like really, really enjoyed my time. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
wonderful rest of your night.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.